So guys, hi, this is Wayne Bennett. I'm with ECRM, and I'm joined today by a very distinguished group of industry professionals from the sales and marketing consulting group. These are people that I have known personally for many, many years, and today we're going to have a conversation with people who know about what's going on at retail today and people who know what's going on with the supplier community today. So let me just go around the room and ask everyone to introduce themselves, and we'll begin. So, Roger, go ahead.
Hey, Wayne. Thanks for having me. Roger, yep. I'm Chief Operating Officer with the Emerson Group.
Christine?
Hi, Wayne. Good to see you again. I'm Christine Uray with MPG Market Performance Group. I'm EVP, Client Lead, and Business Analytics.
Great. Jeff?
Yes, Jeff Mueller with the Greenwood Group, Senior Director of Trade Marketing, Analytics and Insights from Buffalo, New York.
Right, great. Guys, I appreciate you being here very much. And, you know, before we get going on really the business at hand, it looks like you're all doing great. Everyone looks healthy. Everyone's smiling. Looks like everyone's got some good color. I got my lamp here shining to give you a nice glow. But just how's everyone doing personally? You guys hanging in there?
Yeah, we're doing good. Upstate New York needed to transition a high school senior to the house, and my wife doing office upstairs. But you know, optimistic. You know, new dynamic, no doubt, but very optimistic.
Yeah. Christine, how are you making out there in Michigan?
We're doing okay. Thankfully, knock on wood, everybody's healthy. You know, I've got 3 kids that are kind of locked in the house, so that dynamic of being homebound is a bit tough for them. I've got 2 seniors whose senior year has been cut a little short, so that's been tough. But from a personal perspective, things are good. Work family's doing great. We've been very lucky. We haven't had any illness across the team, so we're doing good. We're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I heard that in my high school, where obviously my 10th grader's not graduating yet, but I hear the graduating class is going to do a parade through town. Like everyone's going to go in their car and drive around the town and honk and drive around the town.
I love that. We're trying to think of new ways to have graduation, and maybe that drive around the football field might be one avenue for that. That's great. I think that's great. It's very disappointing when you've been planning proms and everything else their whole lives. It's a tough end for these kids.
It is.
Yeah.
And Roger, how are you making out, Roger?
Doing well, Wayne. You know, our family and our circle is healthy, so we're blessed. I do have a daughter-in-law that is on the front line at Boston Mass General. She's a nurse.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
We're proud of Devin and all of our medical colleagues and for all that they're doing to support and handle this situation.
Yeah.
On the business front, our clients and the associates are doing well. We have a lot of one-on-ones, a lot of video conferencing, a lot of teleconferencing. So I think everybody's handling it very well.
Yeah, that's great, Roger. You know, for me, 2 kids at home, learning, virtual learning, just trying to stay put, not leave the house very much. But those afternoon walks as the weather starts getting nicer here in New York have been really very helpful. And so knock on wood, all healthy here, and let's just hope it stays that way. So guys, so what are you doing with your teams right now? You guys all have large teams, lots of people working for you. You have your internal team, you have your external partners and suppliers. You know, tell me a little bit about how you're working that set. How are you keeping everyone focused on the goal? Tell me a little bit about that. Christine, tell me a little bit how you're keeping your teams whole, both your internal teams and also how you're dealing with the retailers.
Yeah, so I think that, communication is so key and understanding. I think that my friend Lisa Paley, I was talking to her last week, and she used the terms compassion, transparency, and over-communication, and I think that was perfect. We're working hard as a team. We are, I think, a little bit lucky in that outside of our sales services arm, we primarily work virtually. So for many of us, this idea of, a virtual workplace is not new. What is new is all of the additional family dynamic and the homeschooling that comes into play for many of the folks that that are on our teams. And so we actually had a communication last week around COVID boundaries, and making sure that we're allowing folks the time that they need to get the things done they need to with their family and not feel they're stretched in a million different directions. And, that's, I think, in the beginning of this, we were all trying to find our way. And as we've been working through this on a daily basis, we're finding really strong ways of working that help folks balance all these different components.
Right.
The idea of choosing personal communication like video or phone over an email is the preference now, to make sure that we're personally connecting and trying to find those avenues for interaction that, take the place of what we had originally in personal communication and personal connection in person. So, we're finding our way as a team. I think we're doing that also with all of our clients and customers. And they also are learning how to work from home as well. And so we're just finding a nice balance together, which is good. And just, Wendy Liebman used the word, humanity. And I think that's what it comes down to. We're all just finding that human connection.
Yeah. Hey, Roger, you got a lot of clients. There's a lot of things, a big matrix at the, Emerson Group company. Tell me how you guys are keeping it all together with your suppliers and retailers. What are you guys doing to keep it going?
Yeah, I think trying to normalize things. So as you talk to the associates, everybody's fully engaged. They're all working from remote locations, and their day-to-day calendar is full, right?
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, a lot of teleconferencing, a lot of video conferencing, and a lot of one-on-one discussions with both the retailers and the clients. So everybody's trying to keep a normal schedule and just stay engaged, not just for the business continuity, but more for social engagement than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you guys done many virtual happy hours with your teams? That seems to
be not with the teams, but I've got an 85-year-old mom and 90-year-old father that once a week we get together with my two sons, and we'll do a video conference, and that usually involves a cocktail or two.
Very nice. Very nice. Jeff, how about yourself? How are you guys keeping it together with the teams and your retail partners?
Pretty similar to what you've seen. When we first saw this starting to engage, Wayne, we identified 3 pillars that we knew we needed to really focus on. It was people, information, and communication. And we built strategies around those. I mean, first off, we had to get our people grounded and used to a little bit of a different normal. Much like Christine, our team is very comfortable. Many of them are already virtual. We had to transition the office and put some new protocols in place. On the information side, we actually immediately launched a COVID-19 portal that we use internally and then also with our clients externally, with a variety of information from industry to the stuff that we actually provide ourselves. And then from a communication standpoint, we have regularly scheduled internal and external, as well as weekly town halls, which I think, like Roger mentioned, are a little bit more, and Christine said, health and wellness check-in. It's funny, Pat said on the last one, he said, normally we're all trying to hide our dogs when we're on a conference call. He said, I want to hear your dog barking. I want to hear a little bit of the normal out there, right? Yeah. Let me hear your baby crying in the background. Normally we try to keep that out of our virtual meetings, but it's a beautiful thing to hear that now because, we are separated, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just heard my son walking downstairs. My office is in my basement of my home, and I just heard I thought he was going to burst into the room just now, which, there is humanity during these times. So, guys, thanks for all that. So I wanted to kind of shift a little bit to the business, and going to split this up between two of you answering the question and 2 answering the other question. But I want to understand, like, from your perspective, a lot of you guys are in the health and wellness business today. There are some other categories you're working in as well. But how do you see the needs of the retailer today? What are they focusing in on? Where are they leaning in? What's on their mind today? Roger, you want to give some perspective on that?
Sure. I'd say number one is they're focused on supply chain and the essentials, right? The products that the consumers are buying and using. So any incremental inventory is a priority for them. And then the conversation has really circled around that throughout March. But what we're starting to see is a little bit of a shift to putting more attention around the discussions of what does long-term impact of post-corona look like.
Yeah.
So the impact on the consumer, the impact on the shopper behavior. So that's really what's top of mind in the conversations that's going on with the retailers right now.
Right. I want to hear about some of your future thoughts in terms of really how that is going to change. We're going to get to that in a minute. But Jeff, how are you seeing the retailers today? Where do you see them pivoting, leaning into? What are their needs? How's that working out?
Yeah, and some, again, similarity. We're certainly all going to see some of the same things out there. The first wave and blush that I saw was a focus on their own associates with safety and well-being. Some of the retailers putting up the shields for cashiers,
Yep.
the cleaning protocols, et cetera. Absolutely supply chain. We've been on a number of meetings where we're identifying inventory, where we're talking about, does a product need to be limited? What do our suppliers' supply chain look like versus what the needs of the retailer are? Even down to priority stores, identifying priority stores that we might even allocate to. So inventory and supply chain, absolutely important. And then I'd say the third piece is the whole move to e-commerce delivery and click and collect. Major surge in that. Some going to be a lot of unlikely winners and losers from this whole thing. And we're starting to see that in the numbers and some of the e-commerce data. So those are some of the things that we're seeing.
Right. Christine, so I know, in terms of a lot of the suppliers are looking at their supply chain, a lot of the larger manufacturers are leaning their production capacity on the most essential brands and maybe cutting off or cutting back on secondary or tertiary products to help meet the high demand of product. I'm curious to know, and everyone can chime in here, how does this all bode for the smaller manufacturer? You guys work with a lot of medium-sized, smaller, emerging brands. Where is it all going for these smaller brands? How are they going to survive, or what kind of role can they play in the environment today? Do you see the recalibration of COVID really affecting these smaller brands today or even into the future? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely going to have an impact whether you're small, medium, or large. Like there's going to be a recovery period where we're going to have a lot of incredible data to go back and figure out what the new world and the new normal look like. I think when you're a small and emerging brand, there's two different avenues. If you're on the essential goods, side, I think that the supply chain that Roger mentioned and being able to meet the market demand is critical. And so, our focus with those folks right now is making sure that we're unlocking any challenges they may have. We're keeping the wheels turning. We're helping them in terms of being able to supply, the market demand. But at the end of the day, helping prepare them for how to now meet the market need for next year's virus season, what that means for them in terms of innovation, market mix changes, being able to have a different perspective on how they're going to need to go to market to meet that demand. They have now the ability to plan that early to be able to put their resources in the right place, because a lot of those manufacturers have limited resources, right? And so we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we're giving them the best playbook possible based on all the data that we have to inform that go-to-market change they might need.
Right.
I think that if you're in the non-essential bucket, or I don't like non-essential, I like less essential. That's a little bit better.
Right.
I think that, clearly the channel shifting that's happening now will have a huge impact in terms of their marketing mix in the future. And so being able to break through as a new and emerging brand in a space that consumers will now have to rethink and kind of re-engage with, actually offers small and emerging brands a really big opportunity to create new space that maybe in the past they might have been a little challenged because the environment was so competitive. So there's, I think, some new avenues for them in categories as customers come in and engage differently than they have maybe 2-3 months ago.
Right.
to inform that future strategy.
Right, Christine, when you say channel shifting, I mean, obviously, I think online and e-commerce and, buying products now online is certainly here to stay. I've read a lot about work in terms of enhancing assortments and even, delivery from the C-store channel. Tell me what you guys are seeing in terms of channel shifting.
Oh, I mean, I think that the adoption curve on online shopping, has made a dramatic change, right? So it's definitely here to stay. What we know is once consumers make that change and they find that new convenient benefit, it's very hard to break that behavior. So I think that it's here to stay. I think Numerator put out a fact the other day that 15% of all online click and collect transactions that happened over the last month were new consumers, new folks to shopping in that avenue. And so it's here to stay. And as it relates then to your point about assortment decisions, the role of brick and mortar retailers forward going, being able to potentially, adjust that curve is going to be difficult. So I think thinking through all of that mix from a channel perspective is going to be part of that next wave of recovery and go-to-market strategy change.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by all of that, Christine. I think that's some really good insight. And again, here at ECM, we're working with a lot of smaller emerging brands and, have just begun to pursue a lot of now virtual interactions between retailers and buyers. It's been very successful. As of this morning, I think we have nearly 900 buyer registrations for virtual engagement, which is really exciting. Wow. And I'm just really curious to hear more, maybe Jeff or Roger, in terms of, the role of these smaller emerging brands in this market and what you see their opportunity as being. We've sorted very, very simply as a way to fill in gaps in supply. But I'm curious to know, your thoughts in terms of what you're seeing in terms of how smaller emerging brands can step up or capitalize on opportunities given this reset world we're living in.
Yeah, and I'd say, Wayne, really sort of dovetailing off of Christine, the smaller brand certainly is going to be a little more cash restrained, so inventory and supply chain is going to be critical.
Yeah.
We've engaged them all very actively on supply chain alternatives, and we found that actually is well received with our retailer partners. They might be carrying a 40 count today, but versus going out of stock, they're amenable to, in a temporary phase, put in a 20 count, just to use a broad example there. So I think that's very important. The numbers we're seeing are even stronger than what Christine mentioned from Numerator as far as online shoppers being first time. And we're seeing a disproportionate of them going to Walmart.com even versus Amazon. So it's very interesting. As I mentioned, sort of unlikely winners and unlikely losers, perhaps, based on the new normal. So we're seeing quite a bit of that shift to online, as Christine said, and it's not exactly going where you would have thought. So just interesting to watch the numbers and to be, on top of the data week in and week out.
Yeah. Roger, any thoughts?
Just confirmation. Micro brands have been the hottest thing in health and wellness the last 5 years. So we're just seeing an acceleration of opportunity for these micro brands. They have agility, they have speed. Retailers are fully engaged with these brands. And for us, we're just trying to make sure that we can help them navigate, this environment, especially on the supply side of things, helping them forecast supply and demand. We saw, like I said, a big spike in March. And as foot traffic starts to wane a little bit, in May and June,
right?
They're going to give back a little bit, especially if it wasn't, purchases that were made for consumption. And so I think a lot of the questions that these, all manufacturers have is what does the back half look like from a supply standpoint as well as a financial forecasting standpoint. So we spend a lot of time working with our manufacturer partners in that area, really, pulling the data and helping them, guide through the back half of the year.
Gotcha. So Roger, that's a really good segue to sort of the next question, and supporting the supplier bases that each of your organizations support and help bring to market. Maybe you guys could share a little bit about some of the incremental value services that you're offering to support these manufacturers at this time, and to move them past the current situation into what the new normal may look like in hopefully 3 months from now, 6 months from now, into next year. Maybe you could share a little with us about what it is you guys are bringing the value added to the table. Christine, you want to maybe talk a little bit about, from an MPG point of view, how you...
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you mentioned, smaller and emerging brands. And I think in a lot of ways, because those brands, need to be scrappy and need to, have a very direct connection with their consumers, they're very well positioned from a marketing perspective to pivot to a more digital environment as we start to move into this recovery period. Where they need help from companies like ours is the market visibility to data and insights, and understanding, where the puck is moving, what the impact has been from a shopper perspective and from a category perspective, so they can best navigate where to direct their energies, and from a retailer perspective, how they can best impact their assortment strategies, their promotional strategies based on the data that we have access to. We're very fortunate. We've got a very broad portfolio of clients, and we have access to every category of data. So we have a lot of information at our fingertips, and the way that we can bring that together for them to help them build out that strategy, I think is where we add the most value. Clearly, from a supply chain perspective, our sales service teams are working day and night to make sure that we're supporting all the supply needs today, but thinking through forward going, how to best position, next year's season, I think is just as important. I know we're in the heat of it right now, but we will have a very big cold season next year, virus season we're calling it, and that new medicine cabinet will be very different than it was 3 to 4 months ago. And so how we can, help inform what that needs to be, and then position, the manufacturers to best meet that need, I think is where we can provide the best value.
Yeah, Christine, I think I like the cough cold season better than the virus season.
Yeah, I know.
Right on, Wayne.
What? Yeah. Jeff, what about
hurricane season and virus season, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Jeff, tell me a little bit about the Greenwood Group. What are you guys doing as value add to help support your mix of suppliers in this time?
Yeah, absolutely, Wayne. And again, consistent with the team here, I can tell you, while we do a lot of demand planning and forecasting, it's absolutely an overdrive. Understanding that supply chain is extremely important. The portal that we launched communicates on a high frequency now with our clients on industry trends, on consumer sentiment, social feedback, social pulse, as well as weekly sales and support of the forecasting. As Roger mentioned, it's wonderful to see on one side what's being sold, but if you're not selling expandable consumables, how much business have you potentially mortgaged? You got a full medicine cabinet, and we start to come out of this. What does third quarter look like? What does fourth quarter look like? Helping our clients to manage that. And we've even had some proactive meetings on, product development. You're going to see immunity products explode. There's going to be more immunity products. Emergency is going to have more friends on the shelf than an awful lot that they had in the past. So a lot of proactive opportunities as well, thinking of the consumer and meeting that new consumer need. Like Christine said, that medicine cabinet is going to look very different, and people's little backup supply is going to look very different going into future years. Right.
I always like stealing the term from Jim Cramer: every market has opportunity. And obviously, it sounds like coming out of COVID, there'll be lots of opportunity in a whole host of ways. Roger, obviously, knowing the Emerson Group, and I'm thinking, as Jeff and Christine are talking, I'm thinking about that large, massive room that you always take for cough cold at ECRM. It's a show within itself. And so I'm eager to hear what you guys are doing at the Emerson Group in terms of, continuing the values that you offer your supplier community to help them navigate today and into the future.
Yeah. No, as I said, I think right now, short-term, midterm of supply, forecasting and financials is top of mind for every one of our manufacturers, right? They're obviously concerned about the back half of the year, how to maximize the opportunities, but how to protect themselves, right? So manage the risk and the downside, but take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to them. And then Jeff mentioned there's tremendous opportunity on the business development front. We're gonna see some emerging categories come out of this, and some categories redefined that will present tremendous opportunities for our manufacturer partners. So that's the fun stuff. That's the exciting things as we think a little bit more long term.
Yeah. Well, again, Roger, thank you. I mean, that's a really good segue to really the last question I have for you guys today, and this is kind of the spitballing part of the conversation today. And we talked a little bit about in the beginning, but maybe you guys can share a little bit more perspective on not what we've already said, but maybe some other deeper thoughts you have about how this whole current situation, coronavirus, COVID, how is it really going to change retail for the future? How our consumer habits will change. Media consumption is changing, right? There's no sports on TV. And, I've personally been doing more reading on my Kindle now. So things are really changing. So, closing here now, I want to know what you guys think about big thoughts for the future. And in closing, what other recommendations can you make to the audience that's going to be viewing this piece of content later? Jeff, what do you think?
Oh, I mean,
what's your big prediction for the future?
Well, the obvious ones are the e-commerce and the click and collect and the stuff we're seeing on the ground.
I don't want the obvious, the unobvious.
Well, I think you're going to see what's starting to be called supply chain protectionism. I think you're going to absolutely see that. People are starting to understand that this is certainly unprecedented, but their supply chains were not certainly up to it. I think on an even bigger picture, you're going to see that from a government perspective and nationally, where we start to see critical supply manufacture come back to the U.S. and be secured. Should we be relying on PPE, from 13 countries that, who would ever have thought, a global piece like this? I mean, even our strategic stockpile was never built to supply all 50 states at the same time.
Right.
So I think there's going to be a lot of rethinking around all of that, and it's going to make us all rethink. And I think on a positive side, too, I think Christine said it great. I think we're going to rethink our humanity. We're connecting with people. I've seen people pull pictures out that are 20 years old of me, and I'm like, why are you posting that? You got time on your hands. You're digging through your boxes, and in the Zoom meetings and people getting together, dropping off an Easter lily next door to our neighbor. I think you're going to see a piece on humanity that's going to hopefully be a little deeper and a little better for all of us coming out of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Christine, what do you think? What? Tell me something. A forecast, a prognostication for the future. Something we haven't discussed yet. What do you think the future will bring from a retail CPG world?
I think obviously the online piece and all the things that Jeff just mentioned. I think that the humanity comes into play as well. The connection that we have. As an industry, I think has been amazing. How we have pivoted from a supply chain perspective to meet the market need when we put the consumer truly at the center, without any barriers has been phenomenal. And so we've always proven to do that as an industry. What I've been most impressed with now is the speed with which it has happened. And I think this will serve as a benchmark for how we address things in the future. When we really pull back the layers of what needs to get done, we have one aligned position around, putting the consumer at the heart of that objective. And I think that, I think it's going to be a defining moment for the industry once we come through this, and how things work and how we get things done. Secondarily, one of the pieces that we've talked about for a very long time as an industry is the role of the drugstore as it relates to being a healthcare partner for their patients. And, now we have telemedicine coming into play, clearly the role of the pharmacist in store clinics. I think all of that will shake in a way that starts to define a new role for the drug channel overall. And I say drug channel, but really it's about the role of the retailer, more brick and mortar retailer as it relates to health partnership. Clearly we're seeing more shopping online, but there's still that personal connection in health management that I think that we've dipped our toe in as an industry, but I think it's going to explode once we get now to a place where you have consumers looking for advice, looking for partnership outside of the traditional healthcare practitioner. And I think that's going to really be the next wave.
Yeah, Christine, but Roger, before I go to you, Christine, I would agree with you that the role of the community pharmacist is going to certainly, I think, finally completely rise to its profession. And, once that COVID immunization vaccination is approved, I mean, if you think about how many flu shots are being done at retail today, now overlay that with a COVID shot and think about all the store traffic that will happen, now in community pharmacy. So I would agree with you. And having been with the retail drugstore industry for so many years, I mean, this is what they've been talking about forever. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, I remember seeing things about pandemic, response, through the various trade associations. And this finally is addressing all these things that they've done.
And unfortunately, it was always a what if that were to ever happen, right? So that's why I think it never really got the full traction. But now we're living it. We know the need. We understand it better. We all feel it personally. Yeah. And I think that's probably the thing we needed to kind of tip it over the scales. Then you couple that with what that new definition of the medicine cabinet looks like, and now you think forward to what the store experience needs to be, what the assortment needs to be in store. It just has, in my mind, many different avenues that it will take, but it will happen quickly, I believe. Yes.
So Roger, being the consummate spitballer, tell me some big thoughts for the future. What do you see in the future?
So the big bets, I feel like it's our December, January, New Year's, what do we expect, right? But for me, the big bets, hygiene redefined. Think about hygiene totally different and how this has impacted our society. It'll go across every category, bath, derm, first aid, body wash. How the retailers themselves think about hygiene and the shopping experience, because as consumer shoppers, as a society, we're thinking about it differently going forward, right? We'll have 60 days plus of cocooning, asking us to wear masks, asking us to wash our hands multiple times a day. So hygiene is going to get redefined in our society and in the retailer world. The other thing is wellness, prevention.
Yep.
It's going to open up the door for so many different subcategories and brands. Think about stress, think about sleep, think about relaxation. This is where the Microgrants are going to take advantage of this opportunity and move forward. So I think it's exciting times for both retailers and manufacturers.
Yeah.
Certainly good's going to come out of it. Challenging today, but I think we'll come out with nothing but opportunity.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, that's good. And before we close, just in terms of any closing thoughts, I think, Jeff, your closing thought is very positive. Christine, Roger, any closing thoughts? Jeff, good things are going to come out of it. Anything else you guys want to offer here as we close the conversation today?
I'd say a time of patience, discipline, and process. And I just say thanks to everybody for a great conversation today. And above all, please be safe and healthy.
Yeah. Well, guys, listen.
I did it.
Christine, what?
No, that was it. I concur. Everybody, I wish you all, obviously safety for your family, wellness for your family, and for all of us. We will emerge from this, and we will emerge stronger as an industry, stronger as a community, and it will be positive coming out for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and for me, every disruption is an opportunity. So
Yeah.
get into it, be optimistic, stay safe, and stay healthy.
Yeah, guys, I'm real thankful that I can bring the three of you on this call today and get your insights in terms of what you're seeing, what you're hearing. Obviously, connected to a lot of suppliers and a lot of retailers. My hope is that when we see you physically, the three of you look as great in person as you do look on the screen today. And I really do appreciate the conversation. And most importantly to you and your families, everyone stay healthy, stay safe, and continue to do the great work you guys are doing to bring products to the hands of consumers to keep us healthy and sane and safe. And I just wish everyone a great day, and hoping we can see you at the next industry function, hopefully an ECRM function. But if not, we'll see you where we can. So,
Absolutely.
guys, thank you a lot. Roger, thank you. Jeff, Christine, be well.
Thank you,
And
guys.
look forward to speaking to you all soon, okay?
Take care.
All the best.
Okay, bye-bye.